Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo Mish Mash. Don't worry, it's not me solo, but I want to get through my opening spiel because we have a packed show. I am so excited. First off, I got to give you updates on the Amazon photo storage system that's free to Prime members. I've been testing it as a backup solution, and it's got some pretty significant problems, but we'll take a few moments and dig into that. Plus, we got to talk about a new full frame camera from the company that I think has designed the best full frame camera. But that doesn't mean I think everybody should buy it. In fact, I think most of us should skip it. Maybe that's a spoiler, but we'll get to that in a second. We also need to talk about a new product from Sony that points to the death of a line of Sony cameras. And I've leveled up in stock photography. And the headline of this whole show, we got to talk about taking your snapshots and making them much more epic. Or maybe a better way to say that is fewer snapshots, more epicness. We've got tips and tricks for how to capture more epic photos. And what does it mean to be an epic photo? Plus, we have some of your thoughts from that. I am so excited to welcome back a good friend and guest and co-host today of this show, Crystal Weir. Crystal, thanks for joining us today.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
That's right. And you've got your little one on your lap. You were talking about distractions. I said, that's the best kind of distraction we can have. So welcome both Crystal and Asher. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And of course, David Carr is waiting in the wings as well. David, thanks so much again for joining us.
Here. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here once again. We've done a lot of episodes together now, and it's a highlight of my week. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate both of your times. Thank you so much. Crystal, of course, you can follow her at Crystal Weir Photography. Yes, Crystal Weir Photography. It's right there on the screen, and it's linked right down below this video as well. Go give her a follow. That's a nice way to say thanks for this. And the bonus is you get to see fantastic photos. You are an awesome portrait photographer, and you have gorgeous models that often happen to be your children as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And your daughter's celebrating an 8th birthday soon, is that right?
Yes, on Sunday. Yep, she'll be turning 8, so we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's exciting, and that is a fun age.
Yeah,
good.
I've been told.
And David Carr, of course, thank you so much. You can follow David Carr at DavidCarr_photo, also on Instagram as well. And as I said, go give him a follow. David, what have you been up to?
Well, so I was trying to release my review video I was talking about last week. I was going to try to release it today, but I got a couple of other little things I needed to tweak on it. But it'll be out tomorrow. And I'm really happy with it. I think it's nice. For my second attempt at doing a review, it's a step up. It's a step in the right direction. So yeah, awesome. But I've been doing that, and then just I built a rabbit hutch for my 15-year-old son's rabbit. He has a rabbit that lives in his room, and she desperately needed a new hutch, like cage. So she's got it at home now. Yeah. So I've been busy.
Okay. And I'm not making fun of you at all about the video, because I started recording a 28-200. Well, I've been talking about that video for a while now. I finally sat down and recorded kind of the dialogue of it earlier this week. And I'm still a solid day or two away from releasing. It takes time.
It really does. Well, it took me forever to do the dialogue in a way that I felt was decent, and I still don't love it. But I'm going to just beat a dead horse here. I just need to go with it. It's not perfect. It's not the goal. It's just I am trying to share my enthusiasm for the things that I love using, and so hopefully that's what people will get from it.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And we got Roy in the chat room. Roy, thanks so much for joining us. You can follow him at Clicked Photos, is it, Roy? Yeah, at Clicked Photos. And he is collecting questions. So if you're watching the show, this is a relaxed, baby on the lap kind of show where we chat about photography and all those things that I rattled off at the beginning. If you've got questions and we see them going by in the chat room, we might answer them. But if we don't get to them during the show, we get them all together at the end and we answer those. So just be a little patient there. Thanks so much for Roy for collecting all that and putting all those important links in the chat. And chat room, thank you for joining us. I hope everybody is doing well today. It's really nice to see you all. I love both seeing, like last week, I heard a lot of people were talking pretty positively about the haircut, and I missed all of that. I need to slow down and read the chat a little bit more. I will point out that Chris did this.
All right.
And I think she did a pretty good job.
She did.
So
she did a great job.
Very nice.
Yeah, I won't turn around and show the back, but because I think she carved her initials in back there. She said something like that.
Right.
I don't know. It feels a little funny, but from the front, it's perfect.
Good.
So.
That's all that matters.
So yeah, welcome everybody. Quick catch up. Pen content that went out. If you're watching this, many of you are Pen members. If you're not, you should seriously consider joining. We are, of course, offering that deal for new members. First year, just $24 gets you access to all of the videos that we have up there. Hundreds of videos and articles with new content being added each week. New content that went out this week was a tip from Allie talking about color harmony. When we, that's not something I didn't write down when I was kind of jotting down notes about how to take snapshots to an epic level. But color harmony certainly is part of that.
Yes.
And can elevate your photos. So that's a great tip, well worth going and reading. We had another tip go out from Steve Scurich, his part of his real estate series. And since he's not here, I can tell you it just sucks. I mean, it's just terrible.
Yeah, it's just awful. Gosh.
No, I haven't watched it, but I know the first one was excellent. I haven't seen this next one yet. These were well requested and are seemingly well loved so far. So that's great. And there was one other bit of Pen or kind of catch up news that I wanted to cover. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes, to let people know that Creative Lounge is coming back. This is the show that I sit down with David and Allie, and we talk to somebody who is a creative and usually expert in their field. And on September 10th, so a week from tomorrow at 6 p.m., we're sitting down with Robin Hagee. She is a pro pet photographer. And the link to see her stuff is in the show notes, which are linked right down below this video. She's got some fantastic pets. She also has a whole series of fashion photos too, and she even blends a few of them together. So I'm really excited to talk to her both about how to take good pet photos and just to hear about her experience, because she has done what I think so many people want to do. They're in the corporate world, they're making a living, but they're not really happy. And she escaped that and went photography full time. So to hear how she made that transition and is making it work for her, I think will be really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. It's already online. You can go to photorec.tv/lounge and click that little get a reminder button so that YouTube will nicely remind you when that show comes up. Okay.
Hey, Toby, real quick, I need to say to Crystal, you didn't get the memo on the green shirt.
I did.
I put this on. I was like, oh, I never wear this, and here we go.
There you go.
That's funny. I know. I was going to put this shirt on last week, but it was too wrinkly. So I had to.
That's why I unbutton mine and just like make it, hang.
And Crystal's like, why did I agree to be on this show?
You make me laugh. You guys make me laugh.
Good. Thank you.
All right. All right. Asher enjoys it too, I hear. Okay, before we get to all of the news tips, also, did I even show this that I need to open up during the show? So I need to open this up. I haven't opened it up yet. I probably should to make sure it's what I think it is. But it does say lens rental on it, so I know it's not anything too embarrassing. So that'll come. But let's dive into the part of the show that we like, and we are trying to keep a little bit shorter. Just a reminder, that's where we critique your photos. So, and really, it's not just critiquing, it's part of Lightroom teaching as well. Sometimes Photoshop, although as we keep it a little bit faster, we're not diving into Photoshop quite as much these days. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to dive over here. And right up off the bat, we've got Dolph with Cades Cove. Yeah. And Dolph, I'll just say, Dolph was sending me this image earlier this morning, and for whatever frustrating reason, his email kept resizing it so that it was teeny tiny. And I was like, Dolph, this looks like a great photo. I'd love to talk about it, but we need to be bigger. And just thanks, Dolph, for persevering there and getting us a full-sized image.
Cool.
Right here. All right. So first up, Cades Cove. And just a quick reminder that we're not all going to talk about all of the images, just so that we can keep this segment just a little bit shorter. And I mean, the first thing that strikes me about this is just the light. The light is gorgeous. And I think we'll hear us talk a little bit more about light when we get into the epic photos section of this discussion. And that really helps. We've got what we commonly call God rays coming through the trees. I'm not sure if this is smoke or a little bit of morning mist, but whatever that source is, it really creates some nice dynamic looking kind of rays that are all just shining down towards what I think our subject is the cabin, and that kind of strengthens that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the light definitely leads your eye to the subject, which is a nice element.
Yeah, yeah. As far as things go that I would think about when I was out in the field, there's just this little bit of intersection between tree and corner of the log cabin. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'd love to see a little separation there. I mean, whenever I think about important elements within my image, I want them to have their own space. And if that's not possible, then I want overlapping enough that it looks very deliberate. Like I framed that so that tree is kind of lined up over the middle of, in that space between the door and the edge of the thing.
Right.
You agree, Carr?
I do agree. Yeah, I think that was one of the first things I noticed. The thing about this image, it has instant impact because that light is just beautiful. If the light wasn't there, it would be a pretty scene, but that just gives it that light kind of just gives it the impact. But I definitely agree on the tree. And then I feel like on the right-hand side, you've got some leaves that are lit up pretty bright on the bottom right. This is a tough one because I feel like there's so much there that's great. It's just I feel like the cropping, or at least the composition, which some of that might have been in the shooting. I feel like I struggle a little bit with that. And then the fence, I love the element of the fence, but where it kind of stops feels, I don't know. It's a little bit abrupt, although it is what it is. That's what was there. So that's just my take.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I agree. I was going to ask specifically, how do we feel about the fence just kind of petering out right here?
I think if he would have maybe backed up a little bit and got more of the fence in there, it probably wouldn't distract us too much.
Right.
Yeah. When you see just part of it, it's kind of that tease of a story that's not quite complete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Is it worth, in this case, we're going to move on in just a sec, but I'm just curious, is it worth in this case to try to crop out that fence? Let's say if we go
I was wondering that.
Free-form crop, do we end up just, we start to...
I mean, you could crop out a decent amount of it, and then in Photoshop, you could technically remove it and then just have a cleaner scene. It's tough because, like I said, I like the texture of the fence. I like the architecture of the fence. It just feels like there's not enough of it to really complement the rest of the image, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think a trip to Photoshop and getting a little grass in this place here would be well worth your time, Dolph. And then, you mentioned these brighter leaves, David. I think taking those out, plus this stick and this little bit of a darker stick here.
Yeah,
it's just just a little different. So I take that out. Nice. Thank you, Dolph. I'm so glad you get that sent in. Roger Hunt has Paleozoic Times already framed and matted. And if you're watching this and you're not a pen member, just to let you know, there's multiple ways to get your images reviewed as pen members. One of them is what's called option 2. I have started to call it the ultimate image review. It's a monthly image review. And each month, professional photographers sit down and critique your images. We like them to be matted, digitally matted, since you're sending them in digitally. We like them to be titled as if it were a work of art, and as if you were submitting to PPA. And in fact, they use the PPA's, is it 12 merits or 13 merits? 12 merits, right? Of Professional Photographers of America, professional image. And so that's why Roger has done all of that. And this is a very nice image.
Yeah, man. I'm going to peace out because I have nothing to add to this. I mean,
Yeah, I love all the details. Like I love when black and whites are it brings out like all the textures and the details and just makes it more interesting. Really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think going black and white with this was a great call. I agree. There's a lot to love here. The spacing, the placement of when you captured this little foam wave as it's making its way, I think, up the beach, and having a nice amount of room right here.
Yeah.
Love the streaks and the leading lines. These all come together to strengthen and make this image just a little bit stronger. Being real picky, I see it might be a leftover contrail, or there's a bit of a straight line here.
I did see that. I wondered about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise this image is so organic feeling and everything is curved and wiggly, and that's great. And so then that one kind of stands out a little bit. So we'll just kind of take that out quickly. And the other thing that's interesting is there's a shadow here. Is there a building or something that has a bit more of a straight line? I'd love to see if you could soften that as well. It stands out just the way it's kind of square right here to me. Yeah. But that's pretty minor. And Roger, I think you have a really nice image here.
Yeah, well, and I'll just say, it's funny because I noticed those two things after I said that I didn't have anything to add. I was looking at it more. I guess the good thing is the image has the impact right off the bat. There's nothing major that's like distracting. There's no compositional thing. It's just kind of already there. So that, yeah, I agree. Just those few little tweaks, I think will just make it all the better. But what's cool is you're already starting with something really gorgeous.
Yep. Yeah. I think you've done a great edit to this black and white. I was just checking with the J key. There's just a little bit of darkness down in the deepest cracks, and I think that's good. I think you might have room to bring the whites up a tiny bit more, but I think that could also be personal preference and just nicely done. Diane has the Portland Light, which is a really cool location. And this is looks like a kind of moody, cloudy day. And I like you've gone, I think you've gone wider than a 16:9. Yeah. Have you gone like a 2 to, or not 4 to 1, 2 to 1? Well, it's even wider than a 2 to 1. So let's just reset it. I think the panorama feel here is really nice. Any thoughts?
Crystal, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I really like this scene. I don't know if it's too cool for me. I'm not sure. I guess that's just, maybe it was just the time of day. I don't know if it was just a little bit too blue on the blue side, but.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some room for, I just warmed it up a little bit as you said that. And I do think that improves the image a little bit. And Diane, if you really like the feeling of the blue in the sky, I think you could do a local adjustment and keep that blue in the sky, but not let it be on the rocks and the white of the building as much. I think that's what you saw, Crystal.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, David. Were you going to say something?
Oh, well, yeah, I would just come in from the left a little. I feel like that first building kind of needs to be the first thing you really see. I think somewhere in there just starts, because I love seeing all the rocks and some of the terrain, and maybe you could bring back a little bit, I don't know, just to see some of the grass, but it just, it felt like it was getting a little bit too much on the left, in my opinion. And I think that helps quite a bit with the overall scene.
Yeah. And the only other thing I think that's a good suggestion. Maybe a little bit more breathing room on the right. We have this interesting rock. We have a little bit of a whitewash around it. I think I'd like to see just a little bit more of that whitewash around it.
Yeah.
And you're also cutting kind of close to that distant island as well. Cool. Very nice. All right. Robert Forehand has, I think this might be Paris. Paris, maybe? I don't know. There's just, one of those iconic scenes.
It's Disney. It's Vegas, right? It's
right. Yeah. It's the
got
Strip.
The Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. But what I think Robert has tried to do here is capture this from a slightly different angle. You know, my Eiffel Tower pictures are all just kind of standing straight on that greenway, and there is the Eiffel Tower. I have some from off in the distance. So, but you found another iconic, you know, kind of statue, and are including that as part of the composition.
So can I chime in on this one?
You bet.
I feel like I really appreciate that, you know, that he tried to. It's Robert, right? Yeah, I'm reading the name. I appreciate that Robert was trying to do something different involving the Eiffel Tower without it just being a shot of the Eiffel Tower. And because I was just thinking about this exact thing earlier. And so the only thing I would say is, like, if you were in this situation again and you got down a little lower to where you could cut off the tops of those boats and not see those at all, where you see the water coming up from the bottom. You don't really even have to see the pedestal that the statue is on so much. It can just be sort of this, just lower your angle a little bit, because the boats are a distraction to me, because there's just not enough of them there to, like, really be a part of the story, in my opinion. And maybe, just maybe, if you were to move to the left and where we could see the face of the statue and then have the Eiffel Tower off to the left. Now, I realize you're not going to go back to Paris and reshoot this anytime soon, probably, but just for future consideration, it's really cool that he was trying to do something different. I just think maybe there was a slightly better angle that could have captured it even better.
Yep. Yeah, you agree too, Crystal. Yeah, I think the fact that the statue is facing away from us just makes it just a little bit awkward. That plus the little story of the boats. I do like, and if for anybody, you know, watching and thinking about this, I do love that we've got this, you know, cathedral top here, or church. That really kind of gives a sense of scale of the Eiffel Tower, because it's just, you know, literally towering above anything else around it. So that's great. Kudos for that. But otherwise, just a little messy going on. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. All right. Sue Stevens has got one from the Valley of Fire. I think this was, she lives out that way, so she might have done a trip herself. But I know on our Southwest trip, we stop in this location as well. Let me think. Let me know what you think about going black and white.
I like it.
I think, Crystal, did you have an opinion?
Oh, no, I didn't have an opinion. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right. Let's create a virtual copy real quick, and let's do one black and white. Let's look at them side by side. I think, and I'd love chat room for you all to chime in as well. You know, the Valley of Fire has some fantastic colors. I mean, look at those reds, and then that really yellow sandstone plus that blue of the sky. I think those can be really interesting. But then at the same time, the rocks have just fantastic shapes and textures to them, similar to, you know, Roger's beach shot. And going black and white, I think, can really let you focus on those fantastic textures and shapes.
Definitely.
Yeah. I tell you, this looking at the shutter speed, you have 1/5000th of a second. The clouds look long exposure to me almost.
Yeah, they
look
do.
like they have a little bit of motion blur to them. So I think that just happened that day for those clouds to look that way. I will say, as I'm looking over this metadata, Sue, f3.5 and 1/5000th of a second, you could flip those a little bit. There's a little bit of a shallow depth of field for trying to get all of this in focus. And, you know, it's all here. Let's go to E so we can kind of see. Let's go to the color one. Zoom in. You know, it looks sharp in a wide, you know, shooting at 28 millimeters. You really don't have too much problems with depth of field, but it would have been a better idea to go up to maybe 5.6 or 6.3, especially since you have plenty of shutter speed you could bring down. I don't think the rocks would give you any motion blur at shorter shutter speeds.
Brian in chat says, I feel like there are 3 zones here and it's hard to know where to look. Could you, or where to lock? Could you crop in in a much tighter zone like the right side? I was kind of thinking the same thing, because there's actually something really cool about the wispiness of the clouds and then kind of the wispiness of the rocks, or the shapes of the rocks. And to me, that's like the most interesting part of this photo is the rocks meeting up with that wispy sky. I don't know.
Would you go something like this where we have this kind of funky yellow hump structure and then we have all of that plus the wispy clouds?
Well, I don't know exactly what Brian was envisioning. I was envisioning more like an even wider crop than what was originally there, just kind of cutting out some of those shrubs, because I feel like, but the problem is then you cut up into that mound, that dome kind of thing, which I don't know if that dome is is there like an entrance to it? Is it some sort of, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit of an alcove.
Okay. Because I wasn't sure if it was like the subject, so to speak, but I just, I don't know. That's what there's some cool stuff here to work with for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Brian's comment is a good one, in that there's a lot going on. And to figure out how you could simplify this a little bit more, Sue, I think a narrower view, as you just suggested, David, or going for just a smaller zone of this image as well.
Yeah.
Still has that kind of that feeling to it it still has everything that the wider one does. And I don't think you're really losing anything there. So you go either way. Yeah. And Tanya points out that it does have nice complementary colors, which when we're talking about color harmony, that works really well. So yeah. And Brian says it could be 2 photos. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Sue. Steve Pressman has a shot from our Southwest trip right before everything got crazy, when we saw Zion as snowy as I've ever seen it, which was really, really cool. So this is as you come in from the east side of the park, you're looking into the canyon, you're looking over kind of to the iconic mountains of Zion. And I don't know, Steve, if you've done any edits to this, but real quick, I'm going to brighten exposure a little bit. I always watch my histogram as I'm brightening exposure, making sure I'm not going too far. I am going to add a little bit of contrast. Highlights, I'm probably going to leave alone. Shadows, maybe up a tiny bit. I want just a little bit more light in down here. Whites, let's see what auto says. So I'm going to hold down shift, double click whites, and it actually brings them down. But that doesn't mean it's right. So I don't like that.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Sometimes why is it deciding? There we go. There is the little bit of stuff that's starting to get blown out right there. I'm going to bring it back. Tiny bit of snow getting blown out is okay to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then blacks, I'm going to come down just a little to help with the contrast, but not too much that I start to, again, lose in the shadows of this region here. Yeah. Texture, clarity up, a little bit of vibrance, and probably not too much saturation, maybe a tiny bit. And now let's look at what it looked like straight out of camera, or at least as it was presented to us, and then after a couple of tweaks.
Yeah, it's got a little more pop to it. And I would probably come over from the left. I feel like that tall, towering rock is kind of, there's not enough of it there to be part of the story. So, but then again, I struggled with this one though, when I was shooting it.
Would you come?
Because go ahead.
I was just going to say, how far do we come in? Do we come into this tree here, or give it a little bit of space?
I like seeing the tree as kind of an element in the left-hand side, and the hill sweeping down. You know, this is nature. There's a lot going on. So there's not like the perfect place to just compose everything exactly perfect, but that's the point of nature. So it's really just about finding within that frame, where's the sweet spot, I would say. I don't know. I just felt like that rock on the left was not necessarily serving the photo. And I remember standing here and really struggling, like, where's the picture? Where's the photo for me? Like, because I see all these cool things and I can't capture them all in a way that's going to frame up well. And so, sometimes it's tricky.
This is not my expertise, like landscapes or anything, but I like the rock in the photo only because I feel like the left and right side kind of frames snowy mountains, and lead your eye to. That's just.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe there's more, if there's more of it, maybe just to show or brighten it up a little. I don't know, maybe just make it,
Yeah. I think if we do leave it in a little brighter and a little warmer, helps kind of match those tones on both sides.
Definitely
nice. Yep.
Good point.
One other thing that I'm noticing is as I brightened it a little bit, we start to get some blue tones down here. And dehaze can often bring out the blue too. So you got to watch out for that. I'm going to grab the brush tool and just paint in here. Well, it's stuck on teeth whitening from some portrait edits from a little while ago. So let me zero that out and just bring up the temp in that local area adjustment brush. And maybe texture and clarity too, since I'm brushing on the rocks anyway. And just kind of, this might be overdoing it a little bit, but just kind of battle back some of that blue to warm it up a little. Yeah. You think good?
Yeah, it looks better to me. John Mayfield says he thinks the problem here is that the sky is giving us nothing. And I agree, although it is cloudy and it's just, looks like it could be snowing or it could be. It's a tough one with skies. What to do with them,
Yeah, and that's a question we get a lot on the workshop, especially with a gray sky that just kind of, our eyes might see some detail in that, but when we capture it, it's just kind of all washed out. So we could bring exposure down and see if there, if we get a little bit more drama out of it. You could try dehazing it and see if it gets a little bit more drama-ish, but there wasn't much going on up there. So one suggestion, as I just showed, was maybe crop in a little bit more.
Yeah. It looks good.
Yeah, nice. All right, our good friend Oso in Mongolia sent this in, and I would love to see how we would edit this. This is, I believe, straight out of his camera.
Okay.
So, first thing, it's a little crooked, Oso. So I'm going to hit the auto button, which let's see if it straightens it. Probably, but I'm just going to grab and go just a little further. Yeah. And what do we think? I feel like we do this so often, but what do we think about a wider view here? Because there's just nothing going on up in the sky.
Yeah.
But as soon as I start to bring it down, I should say, as soon as I start to bring it down, I notice this cool dune down here with the ripples in it. So I want to come in even more, because that's where the interesting stuff is to me, and get as much of that as possible.
Yeah.
And then shadows up.
Much better.
And maybe even at a point, I feel like you get diminishing return of shadows up and you start to lose some of the contrast. So I'll leave it around there, grab the graduated filter, and just raise the shadows more locally, and also warm it there as well, just to kind of keep it feeling similar in temperature as the rest of them.
Nice.
Maybe a little texture and clarity in that foreground too, to really kind of help those dunes show through. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else to suggest for this?
I'm curious what it would look like in black and white. Just my curiosity.
Let's check it out.
It's probably not going to be
nice in black and white as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you'd probably have to work with the tonality, give it a little more contrast or something. I just thought I would see, sometimes when you got like these heavy shadows, sometimes that really works well in a photo, but I just didn't know what that would do. But yeah, it's at least the color, the colors do complement pretty well if you're in color. So
yeah, anybody watching, we always this disclaimer of our cropping. Our cropping is to show you what we would have loved you to capture out in the field. We don't necessarily recommend you always crop to this amount in your images.
Right.
But, if you're just sharing on social media and it still looks good, sure, go ahead. Also, I'll tell you specifically, I get bummed when I straighten it because we do start to lose this little bit of a swoop shadow where we have some of the really good detail, I think, that can catch your eye and lead up into this repetition of these patterns in the sand dune. So I would have loved to seen a little bit more thoughtful capture about that. And I can be mean to Oso because he got me drunk on Mongolian vodka. So he owes me, I think.
Heard the stories.
Do I owe him? I don't know. Well, we're moving on. That's right. Kevin's got Evening Dew.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
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 I like this. I mean, it's hard for me to tell how sharp it is, but it looks like it might be pretty sharp.
Yeah, we're dealing with a smallish image.
Okay.
So it is hard to tell. Oh, I was zoomed in a little bit too. When I go back, oh, okay, yeah, I was zoomed in. At 1:1, the size he gave us, it looks pretty sharp. I'd love to see if you had a slightly larger version of this, Kevin, that we could dive into a little bit more.
Yeah, but I like it. I mean, stuff like this is it's simple because it's one part of something interesting. A flower that is, flowers are beautiful, but we see a lot of flower photos in the photography world. So it's like, if you're going to do flower photos, let's try to do something a little different, a little interesting. And the cool thing is, in nature, nothing's completely repetitive. Everything has its own unique quality to it. So this, you're taking a real thing, an organic thing, and creating something sort of abstract. I mean, you could do a huge canvas of this and hang it over your sofa, and it would be a cool piece of abstract art, even though it's real. It's just, So I like that you didn't show the whole flower for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Crystal, you went ooh right when it came up. What is there what caught your eye about it? What made you go ooh?
I always get when there's a genre that I'm not familiar with, I think I'm easily impressed. And so I just love the water droplets just added to it. It just kind of shines and pops off the screen. I don't know. It's just really pretty.
Yeah, I like that. There's we've all seen flower pictures. I mean, gosh, I've taken a million myself. But this has that little bit of a uniqueness to it that sets it apart with all of these droplets of water.
Yes.
I do, Kevin, right here, we have this little curve of the petal just kissing the edge, and very similar to Dolph's image right at the beginning. I want this either to feel very deliberate, like, oh,
well, look at that.
Wow, I should have hit the R key sooner. Aha, we can fix that. Look at this. We're just going to come right over here, and it's going to be so much better. Let's see, right about there. And I think we could bring it back here a little bit. So each of these. Now, I think what you were trying to do, Kevin, and I think I succeeded. Yes, I kept the green out, so it stays really tight in on this.
That's nice.
Yeah, I might have done more than I need. Let's come back just a bit. Yeah, it's cool. The image on the whole image is pretty neat as well. But I think you did a cool idea. So Kevin, next time you have this kind of situation, I'd like to see you capture it very tight and detailed like this, instead of relying on the crop to get into the composition.
Yeah. Cool.
Very nice. All right, Lynn submitted this fun experiment. And this is what I love about photography, is that there's just, a few minutes ago, we were looking at a frosted or a dewy leaf, dewy petals, and then some rocks and a lighthouse. And now we're looking at this very detailed macro water shot.
Yeah.
I think it's a neat experiment. I don't think the results are super duper awesome. It just, your settings are good, like fast enough shutter speed. Your depth of field probably could be a little bit more. I just don't feel like we've got sharpness as much as I would like to see, that I think would make this image go ooh for us. I don't want to put words in any mouths.
No, I think that's a good point, because this is a lot like the flower photo in the sense that you're taking one frame, one small section of something else larger that's happening, and concentrating on the texture and the movement and all that. And so it's cool because I love these kinds of things, but because you don't have that other X factor of, like, it's really just kind of one thing, you kind of, I think in these situations, then you're going to need something like incredible sharpness or something like that to make it, or, you know, incredible color or something like that, something to let that be the wow factor. So yeah, I mean, again, you could crop this thing down even more and make a cool piece of art out of it to hang on the wall, you know, and be like, what is that? Oh yeah, it's water, you know? So, but, I agree. I think if you just keep trying this kind of thing, you could probably come up with some really amazing results.
Yeah. I'm curious. I wonder how you did this. I don't think you were at the beach. I think this, was captured some other way. And I do think, David, your point of, kind of repeating this experiment over and over again, and you're going to get a good one. I put out that video about how to use the Myops water dropper a couple of years ago now, I think 2 years ago. And geez, the number of photos I have that aren't worth sharing from that are really, really high. But then I have like 5 or 6 that, hey, I got something good.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to see more of this experiment, Lynn. I will say that I added some texture and clarity kind of to these center drops, and I think that improves it. So I think we're on to something, saying we'd love to see just a little bit more, real sharpness and kind of feeling of depth through this image.
Yeah.
Let's see. Eric Adams, Coles Bay, Tasmania.
Gosh.
Ooh, pretty.
Eric's been doing a nice job of submitting some really strong photos, and I think this is another one in that category.
Yeah. Wow.
Is there enough, you guys, you feel like there's enough room over here?
I could use a little more.
Yeah.
If there is,
Yeah. Not in the one he submitted, but it does feel to me like if we just had just another little bit, really not much, to give this is a nice anchor point to this image. And I think if it was a little further out into the third box, I'd be a little happier. But that's pretty minor.
Yeah, and maybe come in from the right, just lose some of the water, I would think. Yeah, because it just feels like the real subject is those rocks and the tree. So
yeah. And then, we can get into that kind of philosophical discussion that we do every once in a while of how much editing is too much editing. You could certainly warm this sky up a bit more. And I think in this scene, it doesn't and wouldn't look over edited to me. It could take a good bit more kind of colors and saturations and still look like a fantastic and beautiful scene.
Yeah. The colors are fantastic in this, though.
Very nice. Very nice. And I just came up from the bottom with the exact same settings. And so sometimes I do that and I go, oh, well, globally, I could warm it up a little bit more and add a little bit more red tint. And then, then locally adjust a little bit further. What if I come in here and I bring up the exposure just a tiny bit more too? I don't know. Might look kind of moody. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Very nice. And we have our very first ever, we have to go to the library, video critique submission from Tanya.
Wow.
Cool.
That's pretty cool.
That's incredible.
And she sent in a static shot as well. Here's the static shot.
Oh, nice.
It's interesting.
So cool.
I'm not sure why we're getting the black letter bars on the video above and below. But
oh yeah, interesting.
So this was made in Photoshop, which I if you didn't know, Photoshop does edit video, and not only does it edit video, but you can create video through a series of frames and layers. All of that is possible. It's not the most intuitive to edit video, but it certainly works. And Crystal, you are. Oh, David, you are too. Both of you are excellent portrait photographers. I was reminded last night that I am not the strongest portrait photographer as I was taking some portraits of family friends of ours and just going, I just don't know how to pose this family just to show them in the best way.
Right. Well, it's tough, man.
Yeah.
But either of you have thoughts on this?
The top, I feel like I see where she was going with the crop at the top. If it was maybe, I don't know, a little lower or if she would have added more hair. It just seems like the crop.
I agree.
At the top is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think I feel like it could have come up just a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know.
I love cutting tops of heads off in photos. But it feels like this is one where you could actually not do that and it still would serve it very well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. I love the old school TV, and then in the animation, I love how all that works. Crystal, I agree. A little bit more up top would be nice. But Tanya, the lighting here is great.
Right.
Drawn to your eyes.
Yep.
Just pulls in, and that works really, really well.
Well, and the fact that you used an old TV that like even just like the shapes on the TV, these round dials and the framing of the frame of the screen, and there's just like some geometry. So you've got this portrait up top that's interesting, and you're drawn to the eyes, and then you've got this geometry below that I think it's a really cool, like, it's just something you just don't see a lot of. So hats off for doing something original,
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. All right, everybody who submitted, thank you so much for submitting your photos. I know it's not always easy to put your work out there in front of us. I hope you found some value in it. If you're watching this and you are not a PEN member and you'd like to get some feedback on your work, see some tips and tricks, and see how we would edit your pictures, well, you can become a PEN member. Photorec.tv/PEN is the easiest way to find out more about what we offer. All right, we got a lot of news stories, so let's run through a handful of them before we get to our main discussion of what makes epic photos. Okay, so I got an email this morning that was kind of exciting. I don't know if you all remember, a while back on the show, we talked about Shutterstock updating their payout system, and what they are doing now is you have to meet different levels to get different amounts of payout, and you've climbed to a higher level. Good job. I'm now level 3. So far this year, I've sold 251 images, I guess. And my pay rate now is 25%. But reality check. Let's just take a moment. Do I have Shutterstock open? No, I don't. So let me open it real quick and show you what does that actually mean? Well, they owe me $2 right now.
Nice.
And over the lifetime, I've made 1,000, which sounds good. But let's look at this join date, October 2016. So we're working on basically 4 full years. 1,000 divided by 4. My math's a little rusty, but what's that? About $250 a year.
Yep.
That doesn't even cover. Oh, it would cover this little Tamron lens that I have here.
There you go.
So I'd be able to buy one of these a year with it. And I just put this out there. Just a reminder, the whole reason I dove into this stock photography experiment was because I was very frequently getting the question, hey, I want to make a living at photography. I hear stock photography is the way to go. What should I do? And I was like, well, let me try and see and put up some of my, I think, favorite works. This owl has made me $400. Seattle night skyline has made me $225. But again, that one was updated or uploaded back in October. That one was uploaded in February. You can see that in general, unless you are putting up a lot of images and they are images that really appeal to a wide audience, you're not going to be making a lot of money anytime soon. When Adobe stock came along, not too long after I joined Shutterstock, I tried out Adobe as well. Here I have a lifetime earning here of $161.
Okay.
The polar bear from the Arctic trip a couple years ago is my best seller. I don't know why I have 2 versions of it. These look identical to me, but for some reason, one has 60 downloads, one has 21. This image I've used and written a Tuesday tip about it. This was fun. I'm really proud of this image, and I also really love that anybody could do this. This wasn't made with anything fancy. I just, used some glass Tupperware type bowls that we have in the house, laid everything out, and lit it with one small LED panel that costs like $20. So I think this is a fun kind of experiment. It was outside my comfort zone. I'm not typically kind of a food prep photographer, but it's sold fairly well with, half of my best-selling images. There's the burrito fixins.
Cool.
And also, I think burritos are better than tacos, so I'll just throw that out there.
People love their burritos, man.
Burritos are good. For me, I don't think we've asked Crystal this question, but I'll just say for me, I like burritos better because if they're made well, it is a more amount of food you can stuff into your face faster than a taco.
True.
That's it. How about you, Crystal? Where do you fall on the tacos versus burritos?
Gotta say, I love me a good taco.
Yeah. Hard or soft? Crunchy or soft?
I like both, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a preference.
Okay.
Yeah. I like tacos. Yeah.
I don't,
Right.
just for the record, I don't dislike tacos, but I just think burritos is
More
way
filling.
to get more beans. Yeah.
One of the things I love about Mexican food, because I absolutely love it, is that it's all kind of the same stuff. It's like, well, this has tortillas with chicken in it and lettuce, and then this has tortillas with chicken in it, or beef or whatever, and it's everything. It's like just different ways to assemble it all. So I'm a fan. I think we're going out for Mexican after the show.
Oh, nice. Sounds good. All right. This is silly, but I want to get it out of the way real quick. My Photoshop has jokes. I don't think either of yours Photoshop has jokes.
Really?
Yeah. It's let me share this again. It is this little panel that I installed that sits here in Photoshop called Infinite Jokes. It's made by this company. And when it's on, it actually occasionally just reads out in a very nice British accent a joke. The current one, it says, is "Be a tiff in a world full of JPEGs." Let me hit the refresh button and see if we get a new one. It's thinking.
Your computer's gonna crash.
It might. It might. I still occasionally have that random progress bar. Do you still have that, David? The random progress bar in Photoshop?
No, it hasn't done that in a while, actually. It hasn't done it in a while, but that was annoying. I don't know why.
Yeah. So this is totally silly, but it's linked in the show notes. This company has a bunch of what look like useful plugins, but this one really has no use at all. It is completely free. Thank you. But I just wanted to install it and tell you all about it in case you wondered whether or not you would be better off having your Photoshop full of jokes.
So it'd be very distracting for me.
I think sometimes the joke is me trying to use Photoshop. I think that's the joke.
There's a lot to that program.
Yeah.
All right. We've got our first impressions out on the Nikon Z5, and I actually didn't even tease this in the opening. David Carr, have you followed any of that as our Nikon photographer, as our resident Nikon photographer?
A little bit. I mean, I'm definitely interested in it. I think it's a great step in the right direction for Nikon. They finally have addressed the 2-card issue. It's a very capable camera. It's going to give you images on par with the Z6, but it doesn't have the speed of the Z6. And so for a lot of people, that's not going to matter. But, and I think it's going to do well. It's the price point, I think is a good thing. So
yeah, you hit that. Nikon Z5 is going to sell for $1,400 body only, $1,700 with the new 24-50 f4 to 6.3 lens, or 22 with a 24-200 f4 to 6.3 VR lens.
okay.
What's interesting is that they're going to kit it with a VR lens, but the camera itself is stabilized.
Yeah, it's interesting.
A little redundant. Are they going to work together like the Panasonic system does?
That's a good question. I mean, I think so. Nikon just released, and people are starting to get the 70-200 for the Z mount. I'm waiting on mine, but it also has VR built in, and then you've got it. Well, it's got VR in the lens, and you've got it with the cameras, so it is a bit redundant. It just takes you can get even more stops of light out of it, and so it's I don't really understand that theory, that technology, but yeah. I mean, I guess the more you have to help you get great results, the better. So
yeah. Well, let me ask you something, both of you. Crystal, you're shooting with the R5 stabilized sensor. Is that impacting your work at all? And both of you, you're photographing people. Usually people are moving, so you are somewhat limited in not going too slow a shutter speed anyway. Does IBIS factor into how you're photographing people?
For me, I feel like it hasn't, because I do try to keep my shutter speed high, and that usually helps with the. Oh, sorry, my baby's calling me.
Right.
We can go, David. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I shot a wedding last weekend. I forgot to mention that earlier when you asked what I've been up to, but I shot a wedding in the ridiculous Georgia heat and humidity.
Yeah,
awful. But I will say, in the nighttime, it was kind of in the evening, and we were under a tent and low light. And so a lot of times I am going to go to a pretty slow shutter speed just to try to get as much light as I can. I'll go, it's always that balancing act between shutter speed and ISO. I don't want to go too high on the ISO, but but in those cases, as long as people aren't moving quickly, I can get away with a significantly slower shutter speed because I have the IBIS. And so it's not something where you don't need to use it as a crutch, but it's something that it can really help you in certain situations. I mean, I've shot sharp photos at 1/25 of a second, just because that thing's built in. So
nice. Of people specifically?
Oh, what's that?
Of people, 1/25 of a second with people.
I'm trying to remember if that was actually with people. I think I have a few shots with people, but they would have to be pretty still, because if they're moving, it's not going to fix that. But still, sometimes even if there is just the slightest bit of movement, if I'm still able to get a clean shot without all the noise or whatever, I mean, it's one more little tool in your arsenal to because there are going to be situations when you're like, man, I've already got the ISO cranked, my aperture is as wide as it'll go. All I've got left is shutter speed, and might as well go for it. The worst that can happen is you don't get it, but it's at least you have it if you. So I absolutely love that that is in these cameras. I just think that's a no-brainer. Yeah.
It does. It gives you additional flexibility.
Yes,
which is nice. And I teased this, and in some ways I teased it pretty heavy, saying death of Sony cameras, but absolutely true. What Sony has just released is an updated A mount to E mount adapter. So if you forgot, let me just remind you, Sony actually has two full frame mount systems. They have the popular FE system with all of the little E mount or FE mount lenses. And then they have the A mount system. That's the A99 Mark II and those translucent mirror DSLRs, of which they have not released anything lens-wise or camera-wise since 2015, I think. No, wait, the A99 Mark II, I think, was released in spring of 2016, 2017, but no lenses. So they haven't expressly said we're done with the A mount system, but it is clear, since there's been nothing released in basically 4 years, that they are done with that system. And now releasing an adapter that says, hey, A mount people, this will make it easier for you to use your lenses on the FE system. I think it's a clear signal that the A mount is completely 100% dead, and we'll never see a new camera body in that system ever again. So I was going to bring it up and show you. The adapter is cool. They've had this adapter for a while, actually, not long after their FE system, but it was big and bulky in a really dumb way. And the new adapter is basically, it's very similar to the Canon adapter and the Nikon adapter. There's not much more to it than what you need to fit a lens to the body. There's no extra bulk down below. So that's good, and it's pretty affordable too. I have to wonder, though, how many people out there are holding on to a large number of A-mount lenses that are going to be excited about using it. But I guess it does give you a little bit more options. as well.
Yeah, I guess if you had something that was just like, I'm never getting rid of this lens, I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, at least you have an option for still using it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And let's move on to our big discussion. David Carr, you suggested this. I think it's fantastic. We talk about it on the show from time to time. We kind of touch on it from time to time when we are reviewing and critiquing images. You've got images that, you know, we consider snapshots, and then we got images like Crystal. You make you go ooh when you look at it. And that we often refer to as an epic photo. That's kind of a broad sense. Well, yeah, I'll just say that as we start to talk about this, I do want to bring up the picture I used in the Penn Facebook group. When I Googled epic photos, you get some interesting results sometimes.
Sure.
But is there an easy way for each of us to describe what makes an epic photo, or should we just dive into some examples? How should we start?
Well, I mean, I was going to suggest examples just so we can. It doesn't sound like we're just, you know, pulling things out of thin air.
Yeah.
Something to kind of reference, but
that sounds good. Let's dive right into that. Unless Crystal, you want to say anything?
I thought about this when I looked at the show notes,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote a few things down, just my opinion.
Okay.
Like for me, like I said earlier, I feel like I'm easily impressed with other genres. When I look at somebody, I'm like, oh, that is amazing. But what draws me in is like maybe a place that I think I may never go to and photograph, like some kind of epic place like that, like a location, a scene. So stuff like that are factors that I consider when I look at it. But I'm like, wow.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's amazing. You know,
so uniqueness would you say? Because I mean, you know, let's say the Eiffel Tower, for example, you know, could be really cool, but I do think
in a certain way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let's pull up your examples. David, you found some here, and so let me share this.
Yeah.
And let's poll the chat room. Here's a shot. Do we think this falls into the epic or the snapshot category?
I think if I'm just looking at it just right now, I'd say snapshot, but I think it could become an epic photo.
Well, David Carr, you looked at examples. You know the other one that you pulled up. What would take it to the next level for you?
Well, so you know, I feel like it needs to be edited. It just needs that color treatment. It needs things removed. It needs to be cropped differently. It needs to just the tonality. There's in landscape shots, you know, that's a place right there that's obviously been photographed a gazillion times. So what's going to make this photo stand out from all the other photos that were taken there? And so I think it's a matter at this point. There's the information is there for a great photo. I mean, it's an epic spot. And to Crystal's point, the space or the place here is epic. So you've already got that working for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a matter of really honing it in and going like, okay, what matters in this frame, and what do I pull out, and how do I treat it? So,
yeah. So let's look at a slightly different version of this image. It's not the exact same that's edited, is it?
It is.
Oh, it is. Did you do the editing, David?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I'm catching on now. Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So okay. First off, kudos to your editing, because when I looked at these,
thank you.
I thought you just found a really nice epic example, and an example that wasn't as epic, was more a little snapshotty.
Yeah. Well, so no, thank you. Yeah. Oh, let me just say this, and it's funny because as I'm looking at it, I'm going, oh wait, this isn't even the final one that I edited, but because there's some stuff. There's like a branch coming up over the big mountain that I took out eventually, and so, but I don't know why it didn't pull that one up. There are a couple things I tweaked, but this is the gist of where I got the photo. So
yeah, nice. Well, let's boil down. If we, you know, like, can we pick 2 or 3 things to say that you did to improve this image and to take it to to an epic level from a snapshot?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of this photo was the flowers in the front. I mean, I saw those and I thought, well, that's going to be my foreground. I really want those to be like a feature. And so bringing up the color of those, I can't remember if I did local adjustment on each one or just brought up a gradient or anything like that. But whatever I did, I just wanted to bring more of that color out because it's a big part of the photo. And then I did a lot of color tweaking, probably in the HSL panel, and just tried to bring out the complementary colors that I knew could be there. And I also cropped it. The cropping was really important. Just not having too much sky. The sky's cool. It's got the clouds. They're not the most amazing clouds. It's not like, I mean, I would love to see it look a little different than that, but, yeah, I mean, you can see I took the wide shot. That's obviously a raw, straight out of camera shot. And I used this as an example of snapshot because if you were out there with a point and shoot camera, it's going to process it as a JPEG, or your phone's it's going to look better than that. But I just wanted to say, like, this is straight out of camera. And sometimes I think what we see when we do image reviews, we see images where all the information is there to make it great. It's just sometimes the photographer hasn't taken it all the way there because sometimes they don't know how, or they just don't know what to look for. And so this is just an example of what you can do if you've got a sharp photo with all the elements there. This is how you can treat it. So,
yep. Yeah, nice. Roy says in chat, cropping in for a strong foreground helps a ton. I agree, Roy. And I think, as Steve often says, all of the ingredients, you go to the grocery store and you get the highest quality ingredients. We've got good ingredients in this image, but it just hasn't been treated very well.
Right.
When we look at your edited version, what strikes me is by lightening that foreground, it becomes very strong. And by becoming very strong, it gives a sense of depth to this image that's just fantastic.
Thank you. And it's funny, again, I'm disclaimer, I'm looking at it going like, dang it, this isn't even the totally finished one. There's a little cap of snow on the left side that I took out. I know there's some little snowy parts I took out. Just anyway, that's disclaimer. But you get the idea that, like, I knew that there was something there to capitalize on.
Yeah. Even
that glint of orange in the water, that kind of glow of on the water right below the base of the mountain, I was like, that's a cool little feature in this photo. And
for me, oftentimes epic photos really have a strong sense of depth because we're presented, when we're out there in the real world, it has depth. Our eyes can perceive that and feel that, and feel the vastness of a space like this. But when you present this on a screen or print on a wall, you lose some of that feeling. And so editing and capturing in such a way that it presents that fullness of the depth really takes a photo from snapshot to much more towards epic, in my opinion.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Let's look at this one for a moment. Here is our Eiffel Tower again. I think we are actually in Paris. Yes. And, what do we think? Snapshot or epic? I think people are pretty quick to judge this as a snapshot. This looks like, hey, there's the Eiffel Tower, pointed their camera at it and took a picture. Which, certainly it's fine. If you're there and you want to capture those memories, you should have some of these. But taking the time to go to a place and a time where you're going to be able to capture something like this.
Yeah. It's like it's the Eiffel Tower. It's the Eiffel Tower, but it's something you don't see a lot of. We've seen that's probably one of the most photographed things in the world, but this is a whole different angle on it. So.
Yeah. This adds more of a wow factor to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the leading line. It kind of adds the feeling of the tower and the fact of it, being in downtown Paris and having all of this hustle and bustle going on around it.
Yeah.
I think is very, very cool.
Well, and I didn't take these images, the rest of these images I didn't take, but this, I saw this one and I thought, okay, cool. This is just a visually appealing element alternative to the typical Eiffel Tower shot. And I think a lot of times that's what we're looking for. Now, if you're standing in front of Glacier National Park, like the previous photo that I took, that's pretty much what you're going to shoot. I mean, So there are situations where you're not going to have this kind of thing, but I'm just saying sometimes it's good to think outside the box and try some things with places like the Eiffel Tower that are so over photographed.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then let's move on. We've got this shot. It's pretty cool. Right tight on an eagle. Nice detail. Got the eye there. But then you look at something like this. What elevates this beyond that first shot, David?
Well, to me, it's light. And granted, I don't know if this was shot in some kind of studio environment or something, but it's the point is there's gesture to it. The way that you see the whole bird, the light falls off, though, which I think is really beautiful. And you can actually accomplish a lot of that in editing. Even if you took a shot of this in the wild, you can kind of, the photographer here just accentuated the bird, nothing else. You just see you see what the bird is standing on, but you don't see leaves and all this other stuff. And that's fine when you do. It's just from an artistic perspective, the first one felt more like a snapshot of a beautiful animal. I mean, I love birds, but it's, the same subject, but one is just obviously has that wow factor to it. And so you're not always going to be in a situation where you can pull off that level of shot, but it's the example of the whole point of this segment of the show, like snapshot versus epicness. So yeah. Any other thoughts on that, Crystal?
Oh, nope. I agree with everything you said.
Okay, yeah. If I had to boil it down in this case, I mean, it's the light. I mean, the light is just so fantastic on that image on the left.
Yeah.
I just really love it. Really, really nice. I'm going to read a couple of comments from the Pen group. And then I found, this is what I'm good at, not necessarily coming up with my own thoughts, but I found a great article on Flern that I really agree with. And so we'll hit a couple more points beyond what we just looked at here. Cool. David Newbold says an epic photo to him is one that includes technical excellence and a compelling subject that draws the viewer into the scene. Whereas a snapshot is an image of opportunity taken to capture a moment without concern for and likely lacking in technical excellence or compositional elements. Lori Jennings says, an epic photo is intended to elicit an emotion in the viewer. Ideally, that conveys the same emotion that the photographer experienced, but not necessarily. Skilled editing makes this difference.
Yes.
Paul says a snapshot makes him go, oh, epic makes him go, oh, wow. So that. Yeah, as David replied to him, can't say it more succinctly than that. And then Kristen points out that she submits images to her company's annual calendar. She was having a discussion back and forth about lack of travel right now. And that one of the people that she was communicating with says, oh, I look forward to all of your travel snapshots. And she was actually a little, as a photographer who takes herself seriously, she was a little hurt by that. And I can understand.
Yeah.
But I think we're having this discussion, but beyond us, to the normal people, the muggles, snapshot doesn't have any negative connotations, Kristen, to those people. So I would.
Right. And I think it's, some of this, all of it is subjective to some degree. But it when you see it. When you see something that is like that next level of, oh my gosh, that's a photograph, and so is this, but this one here is just like next level. And Jay Maisel, he's one of my favorite photographers. He's probably in his 90s now. Street photographer from New York. He has. He kind of breaks photography down into three things. You have light, color, and gesture. And if you've got one of those working for you, you're onto something. So sometimes you see something where the light's just doing something amazing, and you're like, okay, that's really the wow factor. That's what's going to make this epic, is this light. Without it, so Dolph's photo of the barn, the barn or whatever that was in Cades Cove. Without that light, like I was saying, it's just a picture of a barn in the woods. It's not a bad picture. It just, the light took it to another place. Sometimes the color is what does it. You'll just see these amazing colors bursting and you're just like drawn to it. It doesn't even really matter as much about the subject. It's the color. And then sometimes the gesture, the animal or the person you're taking the portrait of is just doing something that just has a flow to it. And it just, you're captivated by it. And so I think those three elements, if you don't have one of those working for you, you either need to work it out in editing or go take another photo that where you get it. And
yeah. Crystal, let me ask you this. When we look over your Instagram, you definitely make good use of light often. How often do you schedule your outings with your children around knowing that the light is going to be better?
That used to be my intention when I first started, but now that I've like learned how to, I guess, manipulate light, even like during midday, I've learned how to manipulate it and like photograph in a way that it doesn't look too, what's the word? I don't know the exact word.
Harsh? Is it?
Yeah, too harsh. I guess
I think harsh during midday.
Yes.
So I've learned how to manipulate the light or like shoot in ways that make my photos not look too harsh in sunlight. But
good.
Yeah.
Nice. Can we come back to you for a tip or two on that? Because I would love, to have some tips. I scheduled my portrait session yesterday when I knew the light was going to be lovely, and it was. Oh, it was so lovely. As I said, I just felt like I was failing a little bit in posing this family, but in general, the light was just fantastic. All right, so the article I found, we're going to hit a couple more, is from Flern, and it's called 10 Outside the Box Techniques to Make Everyday Photos Epic. And we've touched on several of these ideas, a lot about the light and the depth. But this author talks also about angles. Angling up is a great way. And how I would say that is, we all walk around, probably somewhere 5 to 6 feet off the ground. And so when you present an image, I see what on our workshops always, everybody sets up their tripod at that height because that's where it's comfortable. Not everybody, but most people. It's comfortable for us. But as soon as you step outside of that normal view, you are creating something that's a little bit more unique, like Crystal said, that is just, sets you apart from everything else. So I think angling is a fantastic way to think about making your images a little bit stronger.
Absolutely.
Isolate. I mean, we just kind of looked at this with the eagle example that you found, David. That the really strong eagle was really just isolated from everything going on around it. And that was a unique view.
Yeah.
And I think anytime we can do that is good as well. Wide angles are unique because they're not how we usually see. I would just say, let's be cautious, because it's very easy to slap a wide angle lens on and go around and not realize how much crap that we're capturing along with what caught our eye.
Yeah.
But they can be used to create a very dramatic scene, and they can also be used really nicely to capture that foreground elements. They create more space between your elements, and you can use that to kind of exaggerate and exaggerate the depth in the image.
Yeah.
So very good. Speak with architecture. So this is his, you already know about leading lines. Take it one step further by looking at architecture as a statement or symbol to use in your imagery. And, in a way, when photographing people, it's really nice to use leading lines, natural or artificial, like architecture, to kind of strengthen those images and make them stronger.
Yeah.
And this, I've never heard this term before. Sfumato. I don't know if, the practice of sfumato, which is kind of translates from Italian to soft or blurred. And it's about how the way light and optics work, objects blend into each other and soften as they recede in space. And of course, you can see that great example here of those distant hills kind of just softening out. So I love that term. And just when you think about Renaissance painters in general and the way they painted with light, again, back to the Cades Cove example from Dolph, those were often painted into images to make them look epic. So yeah, you want to capture those as well. Number 6, I think this is kind of another example of angle. Instead of angling up, you're angling down. You're getting to a vantage point and giving people a view that they don't normally see.
Yeah.
And 7, I really like this. And this is what can be hard. This can be hard for people that are just kind of traveling normal with family and friends. Is that you're forced to create a lot of snapshots because you have a moment that you're passing by the Eiffel Tower or you're walking down, Las Vegas Boulevard. You don't have time to stop and wait for the perfect moment or a moment that looks really, really good. But gosh, waiting for that till things line up just right. There's this example, and at the bottom of it, they have this great example too.
Oh yeah, that's
of,
awesome.
Just waiting and being patient a little bit.
Well, yeah, and can I just say, like, the photographer, whoever took this, what is it, Josh Rose?
Oh yeah, Josh Rose. Yep.
So like the chances of that happening again, unless this was posed, which it looks like it might have been, but either way, sometimes situations it's like it's a photographer is only so lucky to get something like that one time. So
yeah. Crystal, when you're working with your children, how often do you just kind of wait patiently for the right moment versus pose?
It's easy for me for when I'm photographing my baby. It's easy for me to wait for him to do, because I know he's going to do something and he's going to pretty much stay in one particular area. So it's easy for me to wait and just watch him and just see what he's going to do. And I try to be just in the right, I guess, get the right angle. But for I pose my older kids just sometimes, like if we're out and about and they're not in like the right light or something like that, I'll be like, do that again, but move over there. I mean, it's just a balance,
Yeah.
It's a balance.
Nice. Good.
yeah, it's good.
Good. Number 8, experimentation. Back to, I think it was Diane's, splash picture. I think, that's the start of a cool series, Diane. This is all in the editing, but that's pretty neat. Kind of makes me want to try that with a mountain shot or something that has a sky that's not too exciting. So feel free to experiment and feel free to submit into us to see what we think. Think like a DP, director of photography for cinema. I think this is great. You are setting up feelings, evoking emotions through the cinematography of the movies you're watching. And so thinking about creating that in a still shot as well, I think can really help. And shoot late and low light, which also very cool. Again, I think there's another example in here with light trails. And David, the one you pulled out with the light trails of the Eiffel Tower, that's not something our eyes see normally.
Right.
And so again, you're setting up a more unique situation that presents something to us that's not very common, and that elevates your image to the next level. Next level. Cool. Anything else we should add about that? Chat room, how are they doing?
I just wanted to add that just a few more, I guess, tips.
Sure.
You mentioned angles, different perspectives, shooting low, shooting high, because I shoot my kids, like you said, and it can look like snapshots a lot of the time. So for me to make it more interesting, I do try to find different angles or different ways to, like, I'll shoot through something, or I'll add some layering, or, I find just different ways to just make this daily thing that they do look more interesting, or just add more uniqueness to it. Something like
cool.
that.
Nice. I'm just going to pull up your Instagram real quick, because you've got 3 great examples right here of kind of isolating beautiful light on the children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the idea of shooting through something is the goal there, to create a little bit more of the feeling of depth in the image.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna. Oh, maybe we could even get you to write it. I like this. coaxed Crystal onto the show, and now I'm coaxing her to write a pen tip. But I've been thinking about this for a while because I love to do this as well. Is bring a few branches into the scene, and shoot through to kind of create a sense of depth to your images. I think can be a nice way to make them stand out a little bit more. So maybe we can write a little pen tip with some examples in that at some point, Crystal.
Maybe I can do that.
I think you're not busy or anything.
I think one of the things you do really well, Crystal, is, and this is something I'm starting to notice in a lot of the photography that I love, is things are not too bright. That the light is where it needs to be. That the light level, the contrast is there enough. But I love fall off. We've talked, Toby. We've talked about Nick Page, some of his photos recently, and he just does this thing where a lot of his photos have this they're very dark, but they're awesome. Like there's this thing where like there's just enough light on this part and just enough light on that part. And I think, Crystal, that's what I see you doing is like, I mean, there are parts where it's really bright, but it's not like it's overpowering, stark, like harsh bright. It's got this, and some of that I know, like we were talking about prime lenses last week. They can achieve that in a way that's just kind of gorgeous. And so I definitely we don't want people to produce really dark images, but don't be afraid to start with a little dark and then kind of bring up the areas that need to be brought up and like paint in some highlights, and because it can look really pleasing when things are just not all in your face at the same time. So.
Right. I like for people who are just learning, like you don't have to take this tip, but I do kind of try to shoot a little bit underexposed in a lot of my stuff, so I can bring up what I want to, like you said, in a Lightroom or Photoshop or something. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, nice. All right, I think that was a great discussion. There was one Brian had. Brian said, waiting for it is huge. Park on a corner with an interesting background and wait for something to happen.
Yeah.
It really, if you have that, being able to set aside that time when you go out photographing, that's one of the things that it's nice on the workshops is we usually are very happy to wait in a location for that moment where the light and everything lines up very nicely. And I recognize when you travel with your friends and family, that can be harder to do. They're like, yeah, you took the picture of the Eiffel Tower. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's move on. But it makes a huge difference. Yeah,
it does.
All right, we're going to start to wrap up the show. I realized I didn't open the big box. So let's open this. I'm pretty excited about this. It was supposed to arrive last Friday as I headed out for a cool kind of weekend of astrophotography in my minivan camper. But FedEx had some issues, so it arrived Monday. And for that big box, there's actually only one smallish lens in here. And it is kind of unassuming looking. It's the Sony 12 to 24 f2.8. So this is
nice.
The world's widest f2.8 lens because it starts at 12 and goes to 24. Now, sitting right next to it, I think this lens is about $3,000. 27, 28. It is not cheap. Sitting here right next to it is that updated Sigma 14 to 24 that is $1,200. I'm curious to see, first off, 12 to 24, 14 to 24. Both are f2.8. From some reviewers that I trust that have put these side by side, really hard to see a difference in sharpness. But does 2 millimeters matter? We can make a joke in there, but that's we'll put the lens caps back on. I'm going to treat this very gently because I don't want Sony to get angry at me with big scratches on it. But I'm excited. I hope to get out again in the next couple of days or this weekend to shoot some more stars. 12 is just, it is a pretty significant difference from 14. At that range, I think it's about, I want to say 4 degrees per millimeter at that. So,
oh, really? I was wondering at that, because I know when you get into more telephoto, you don't see as much of a difference, but
that's right. Like 200 to 300 is a pretty small amount.
It really is.
14, it's definitely noticeable. So
that makes sense though. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I didn't know if that was just like Sony's way of trying to like one up everybody, but if it sounds like it could actually be a significant amount.
Yeah.
Although I know, like, I shoot with a 14 millimeter, and a lot of times 14 is just too wide for almost everything. So,
I was about to say that.
yeah.
Not that I want to copy everything you're saying, David, but it feels like so often I find myself not at 14.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little ways away from it, but with the right composition and with the right spot, I think there certainly is room. So I'm curious to hear from Steve. I don't think he'd ever shoot with a lens this wide for his real estate. We have a house in the neighborhood that went on the market a couple of days ago. And, like we always do, we're like, let's look at the pictures. We want to see what that house looks like. Yeah. And they have this, we're like, what? They have a huge rooftop deck. And then we're like, wait, no, they don't. That's that little thing that we walk by on the front porch. But it was shot with such a super wide angle lens that it looks like you could land an airplane on it. And it really literally is like the size of the room I'm sitting in right now, which is not very big at all. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what I think, but I'm excited to go shoot some pictures with this and have a little fun.
Yeah. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. All right. I think we're done. It went a little long. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Crystal, for hanging out with us. You can, of course, follow Crystal on Instagram. That is a really nice way to thank her for her time that she's giving to you all. And you can see her fantastic images there as well. And from her bio, you can find that she's a mod on 2 other fantastic Instagram accounts. So next time we have you on, Crystal, I'd love to talk a little bit more about Instagram and how it is running different accounts and how you balance that and what you're looking for as you gather pictures. Because I know everybody wants to do well on Instagram, and it'd be nice to have some tips for them. Cool. David Carr, thank you so much for joining us as usual.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
I appreciate all of your thoughts and words. And you can follow David at his Instagram as well. And follow him on YouTube. Your YouTube link is down below in the show notes and under this video, because very soon he will be releasing a video review of his 500 PF. Is that right? 500? Right.
Yes, the PF.
Awesome.
And I even explain what that means in the video. So
nice. Looking forward to it, because
clickbait.
I think I know, but very good. Very good. All right. And Roy, thanks so much for hanging out in the chat and chatting with everybody. Yeah, chat room, thank you. Really appreciate you all hanging out with us. If you've watched this long and you haven't already, please take a moment and hit that thumbs up. That's a nice way to thank all of us for our time. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button along with the little bell so you'll be notified of future videos. And consider joining Penn. It's a fantastic deal with a awesome community of people that we can't really take credit for. They just showed up. And they are great. So I really thank them all for being as wonderful as they are. All right, folks, until next time, next week, bye-bye.
See ya.